They fired me because I refused to lie. Not to save myself, but to protect lives. One signature, and I would have secured my promotion, my paycheck, my peace. Instead, I watched my badge turn gray and my name vanish from every system I built. My daughter asked why I stayed home all day now. I told her I was resting. I lied. Just once. The irony? 1 month later, every single person who pushed me out resigned. Not because I exposed them, but because someone else did it for me. Or so I thought. The moment I stepped into the lab that morning, something felt staged, too clean, too quiet. The usual hum of conversation between the AI team and auditors was replaced with the sterile click of keyboards and the faint hum of servers. It was my final week before the IPO review deadline, and everyone knew it. I was the last checkpoint, the man whose name would either greenlight a billion-dollar launch or sink it before liftoff. Gregory greeted me with his usual forced smile. "Need anything, Ethan?" he asked, like I hadn't already requested the original model logs 5 times. I nodded toward the terminal. "Just waiting on full access. The internal accuracy reports don't match the simulated outputs." He patted my shoulder. "We're fine-tuning that. Sometimes the sandbox data exaggerates variance. Don't sweat it." But I wasn't sweating. I was freezing. That afternoon, I found what I was looking for. Buried 3 directories deep was a piece of code, subtle, elegant, malicious. It rerouted edge case inputs to an internal library of clean data, designed to inflate diagnostic accuracy by over 20%. The AI was gaming its own demo. No patient safety implications yet, but if deployed, it could delay real diagnoses. Lives could hang in that margin. Gregory invited me to his office after hours. "Look," he said, swirling his whiskey, "we both know this model will save lives eventually. What's a little presentation magic to get us through the door? Investors don't care about debug logs. They care about potential. This IPO sets up hundreds of people here, Ethan. Families. Futures." I stared at the glass in his hand. "So you're asking me to lie?" "I'm asking you not to panic over imperfection. Just extend your review timeline. You don't need to call it fraud if no one's been hurt." The silence between us felt like a signed confession. I stood. "I can't do that." That night, I got home well past 10. My daughter was curled under a blanket on the couch, coughing softly. My wife gave me a look, half worry, half exhaustion. She said her throat hurts, but I think she just wanted you to come home earlier. I sat next to her and stroked her hair. "Feeling sick, kiddo?" She nodded, eyes wide, but I could see the corners of her mouth twitch. She wasn't sick. She just missed me. I spent the next few hours staring at the audit report on my laptop, cursor blinking on the last page. All I had to do was sign. My name, 5 letters, would push the company over the line. Or I could submit my findings, kill the IPO, and take a flamethrower to every relationship I had inside those walls. At 3:17 a.m., I typed 2 words, "Decline certification." Then I opened a blank page, wrote a resignation letter, and saved it as final.docx. The next morning, I arrived at work early, placed the printed letter on my desk, and walked straight into my manager's office. I dropped the audit file on his table. "No need to schedule a meeting," I said. "It's all there." By lunch, my employee badge no longer worked. At first, I thought it was procedural, a temporary lockout maybe. But by 3 p.m., I'd been locked out of all internal systems. My Slack account vanished. Colleagues avoided eye contact in the halls. The silence wasn't just awkward, it was coordinated. By 4:15, an internal memo leaked. I wasn't named, but the phrasing was surgical. Due to a recent incident involving improper access and procedural breaches, a staff member has been suspended pending investigation. I laughed, out loud, in an empty stairwell. I called HR. The voicemail said they'd follow up shortly. By 6:30, no one had called. That night, I tried to tell my wife everything. She listened. She didn't interrupt. But I could see it in her eyes. This wasn't just my burden now. It was hers too. The next day, I drove to a local park to clear my head. My daughter's bike had a flat tire. I crouched beside it, staring at the deflated rubber, realizing I didn't have the money to fix even that. I wasn't a hero. I was a man with no job, no prospects, and no protection. That's when the message arrived. An unmarked envelope inside our mailbox. No return address. Just a USB drive, taped inside with one line scrawled in red ink. They're watching you, but I'm watching them. I plugged in the USB with the kind of hesitation you reserve for touching something radioactive. My laptop stuttered for a moment, then opened a single folder labeled Archive, Chat, Internal.zip. No encryption, no password, just open, waiting. Inside were screenshots, hundreds of them, Slack logs, email chains, meeting transcripts, all involving me. 3 months ago, long before I ever submitted the audit report, Gregory and 3 department heads had started discussing how to mitigate risk associated with audit bottlenecks. I'd been the bottleneck. I hadn't even known. Their language was clinical, surgical. Control for Ethan, one message read. If he refuses, again, initiate protocol GR7. Another. He's too close to the sandbox discrepancy, delay access. And then the one that made my stomach turn. Has anyone looked into her? Followed by my wife's full name. I closed the laptop. That night, I lay awake, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, my wife's gentle breathing, and the pounding of my own thoughts. I'd thought I was the first, the only one. But what if I wasn't? How many others had disappeared, quietly escorted out under vague memos and erased logins? How many Ethan Blakes had already vanished before me? People who played fair in a game built on cheat codes. I stared at the ceiling and whispered, what if I'm not the target? Just the example. By morning, I knew I had to act. But how? I wasn't a hacker. I wasn't a whistleblower. I was a guy who said no and got canned for it. I reached out to a reporter I vaguely knew from a security conference years ago. He wrote about corporate corruption and tech whistleblowers. I sent a short message. Sensitive material related to IPO fraud. AI system. Urgent. Contact me. 2 hours later, his reply was brief. Need full chain of custody and source validation. Without it, I can't touch this. I stared at the message. That was it. I had nothing else. No credentials, no shield, no witness protection. Just a USB and a ruined career. I was almost ready to forget the whole thing. Then the message came. It popped up while I was scrolling through old job listings, the kind of doom scroll you do when hope turns to routine. A chat request on a secure messaging app I didn't remember installing. Username, Echo Inside. Message, I know what they did to you. I saw it too. Meet me here. Attached was a location pin, an abandoned co-working space 3 miles from my house. I didn't reply. I drove. The place was dark, the air stale with forgotten coffee and bad decisions. But in the back corner was an envelope taped to a chair. Inside, a note, handwritten on printer paper. You don't need to trust me. Just trust this. Decrypted. It'll prove everything. A second USB. I went home, shut every curtain, disconnected from Wi-Fi, plugged it in. Inside were raw server logs, packet traces, code versions, sandbox test overrides. Too much to read in one night, but I recognized the file structure. This was back-end data, unfiltered, undeleted. I messaged Echo inside. Where did you get this? Minutes passed. Then, I used to be an intern. They fired me after I flagged a data mismatch. They said I misconfigured the logs. I didn't. You called me sloppy. I froze. The memory came back. A kid in a hoodie fumbling with a tablet. I'd been frustrated, short with him, told him to triple-check everything before he wasted my time again. He was right. I'd been wrong. I typed, "I'm sorry." The reply, "It's not about sorry. It's about stopping this." That night, I sat in the dark with a glass of tap water and an old photo of Gregory and me from college. Back when we believed in clean systems, in smart code, in ethics. When did it change? When did we? The data on the USB was enough to burn everything down, but Echo had warned me, if this goes public, they'll find me. I won't survive this a second time. So I had to choose. Send it to the authorities. Wait months for red tape, and maybe watch it vanish into a vault, or do something louder. I opened TikTok. A single video, anonymous voiceover, blurred screen, just text. They lied. The AI was never safe. And the people behind it knew. I uploaded it and waited. The video was exactly 36 seconds long. No voice, no face. Just white text on a black screen, flickering like it was hacked together in a garage. And that was the point. The AI is lying. The company knows. People are dying. Then a blurred screenshot of a sandbox override log. That was it. I posted it to a new TikTok account. Ayo Whistlebite. No name, no location tags. It went live at 1:12 p.m. By 2:45, it had hit 100,000 views. By 4:08, it crossed 1 million. I sat at the edge of my bed, refreshing the screen like a lunatic, the comment section exploding. Conspiracy theories, medical professionals debating, coders dissecting. I felt sick and alive at the same time. It wasn't even about me anymore. It was about the code, the lie, and the public finally looking. At 4:43, a comment got pinned by the algorithm. "I'm a doctor. We've been using this AI for 3 months. I've had doubts." That comment had more likes than the video itself. By 5:30, it made Twitter. A user named rscansurvivor posted a thread. I watched this TikTok, checked my own hospital records, requested my diagnostic logs. Guess what? I was flagged low risk by the AI. My scan showed early-stage lung cancer. I'm lucky a human rechecked. 10,000 retweets in 10 minutes. By nightfall, every tech forum, healthcare subreddit, and Discord I'd ever lurked was flooded. The AI was trending, not the company. That was key. It wasn't about vendettas. It was about systems, and the people hurt when those systems fail. I closed the app and turned toward the hallway. My daughter stood there, barefoot in her pajamas, holding a drawing in one hand and her favorite stuffed bear in the other. "Did you fix it?" she asked. "Fix what?" "The bad computer you told Mommy about." I hesitated. "Not yet." She tilted her head. "But you're the superhero on the phone, right?" I didn't know what to say. I just knelt and hugged her. Around midnight, my burner phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "National broadcast, prime time, tomorrow. You speak?" No signature, no context. But I knew exactly what it meant. Someone had seen the video, and someone wanted more. The next morning, I was picked up in an unmarked SUV with tinted windows and a driver who didn't talk. We stopped at a nondescript studio that looked like it had been built in the 90s and never updated. Inside, the producer handed me a suit jacket and asked for my name. I gave none. "You sure about the mask?" she asked. "You'll look." "Anonymous," I said. "That's the point." We went live at 7:01 p.m. The screen opened with my silhouette. The host asked questions, direct but respectful. I answered with facts, evidence, but never names. I never said the company name. I didn't have to. Everyone watching already knew. I laid it out. How the AI's accuracy reports had been manipulated. How patients were misdiagnosed. How data was suppressed to inflate investor confidence. I described the internal discussions, the language they used to justify it. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. But my hands were shaking under the table. At 7:26, they cut to a commercial. I was escorted out the back, down a service stairwell, and into a different SUV. No interviews, no aftershow, no trace. I thought I could finally breathe. Then, at 8:07, Gregory appeared on a competing network. No mask, no shame. He smiled, leaned back, and said, "This entire thing? A hoax. A disgruntled employee with a grudge. No names, no verification. That's not courage, that's cowardice." He knew it was me, and now the world did too. At 8:39, I received a message from Echo inside. Only 2 words. "They know." I called. No answer. I messaged again. Nothing. I stayed up all night, refreshing encrypted inboxes, scrolling through anonymous boards, scanning news updates. Nothing. Not a whisper. The kid was gone. By 6 a.m., I was in my car, parked outside a closed coffee shop, gripping my phone so tightly it creaked. I opened our last message thread, the one where he told me he still believed in something. I played his voice note again. "You said no to them, Ethan. That matters. Maybe we both said no too late, but it still matters." I cried. I hadn't cried since my dad died. But now, in a half-empty parking lot, I broke, because I knew something terrible had happened. And it wasn't just data. It was a person, a kid who had once looked at me like I was the adult in the room, and I hadn't protected him. Later that day, a letter arrived at my house. No name, no logo, just a federal seal embossed on the envelope. Inside, the FBI would like to speak with you regarding recent disclosures of confidential technological practices. You are not under investigation. You may be a protected source. No one had knocked yet, but they were coming. The flash drive clicked into place with a hollow sound. I took one final look at the folder I had built. Dozens of labeled subdirectories, screenshots, logs, internal memos, Slack threads, video clips, and voice recordings. All time-stamped, all sourced. I didn't hesitate. I zipped the entire folder, encrypted it, and sent it to the contact listed on the FBI letterhead. Then I shut the laptop and stared at my reflection in the dark screen. The process moved quickly, at least quicker than I expected. Within a week, whispers started surfacing across news outlets. Federal review launched into biotech IPO fraud. A few journalists contacted me through secure lines, but I said nothing. I had already said enough. It was the FBI's turn now. But what no one expected came 3 days later. An anonymous whistleblower, this time from inside the company, confirmed everything, and more. His statement was short. They've known for months. The AI was rigged. The data was real. We lied. The next day, stock prices plummeted. The company's partners began publicly distancing themselves. Hospitals suspended use of the AI system pending investigation. The IPO was paused indefinitely. Then came the headline, "Former board member alleges forced retirement over AI ethics concerns." Her name was Margaret Liu, a quiet, respected figure on the board who had mysteriously resigned just weeks before the IPO push began. In a recorded deposition, she revealed that she had raised concerns about ethical transparency during internal meetings and was promptly told to step aside for the sake of momentum. Her words hit like a hammer. We were building a bomb and calling it medicine. I couldn't stop shaking when I read it. For the first time in weeks, I took my daughter to school. Just the two of us. She wore a blue backpack that looked oversized against her tiny frame, and she skipped beside me as we walked up the steps. "You're not working today?" she asked. "Not today." "Good. You can pick me up too?" I nodded. "Every day." She smiled. "You're a better superhero without the phone." That stayed with me. At home, I sat by the window, watching the neighborhood quietly resume its rhythm. Then my phone buzzed. A forwarded screenshot, an internal email thread, leaked anonymously, now trending on Reddit. The subject line read, "We're losing control." The message was frantic, filled with damage control language. "Contain exposure. Delay formal responses. Keep legal at arm's length. This is no longer internal." Micro cliffhanger, I thought. Except now I was the one writing the next scene. Then the call came. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. A pause. A breath. Then, "Ethan, it's Gregory." The voice was different now. Not slick or smug. Tired. Measured. "We need to talk," he said. "In person. Just you and me." I didn't answer immediately. He continued. "Not a threat, not a trap. You want the truth? I'll give it to you." I agreed. Against every warning in my head, I agreed. The meeting was set for 9 p.m., neutral ground. A quiet rooftop cafe, long closed for renovations, but still accessible if you knew the back gate. I arrived 10 minutes early. He was already there. Gregory looked nothing like the polished executive I remembered. No suit, no gel. He looked like someone who hadn't slept in a week. "You came," he said. "Say what you need to say." He took out his phone and slid it across the table. It displayed a web of interconnected projects, fund transfers, and shadow companies, all pointing back to a single investment firm I didn't recognize. "This wasn't my idea," he said. "None of it. I was the face, not the architect." I stayed silent. He continued. "The moment I tried to slow down the timeline, they reminded me who pays my mortgage, and yours, once upon a time." "Why tell me this now?" I asked. "Because they'll need another scapegoat. You were convenient the first time. You won't be the last." He showed me an encrypted folder. It contained blueprints, code bases of similar AI models under development in 5 countries. Different names, same core structure. "They're replicating it," he said, "globally." I stared at the screen. I felt a strange blend of dread and clarity, like seeing the second chapter of a nightmare you thought was over. Gregory leaned in. "We can expose them together. You have the audience. I have the trail." I looked at him, and for a brief moment, saw the man I'd once built firewalls with in college. But that man was long gone. That night, I returned home to find my wife asleep on the couch, our daughter curled against her side. I watched them breathe, slow and safe. Then I went into the kitchen, opened my laptop, and typed one email. "Thank you for the offer. I decline. I work better alone." At 2:14 a.m., my phone rang again. The voice on the other end was crisp, official. "Mr. Blake, this is Agent Keller. We'd like to formally invite you to testify. You'll be the primary witness in a multi-agency investigation. We're classifying it as international fraud and regulatory sabotage. The game was changing, and this time, I wouldn't just be watching. I used to think justice was the end. That once the truth came out, the system would fix itself. But the system doesn't heal, it adapts. I learned that the hard way. 2 weeks after the FBI announcement, I launched Ethics Lab, a decentralized coalition of former insiders, whistleblowers, coders, and policy nerds. Not a company, not a foundation, a movement. We didn't chase retribution. We built countermeasures. We published open-source auditing tools for healthcare AI, created training simulations for compliance teams, held digital town halls with ex-employees who'd been silenced before I ever spoke up. It wasn't loud. It wasn't viral. But it was working. We got emails from clinic directors who quietly disabled faulty systems, from med students who used our guidelines to challenge flawed data during rotations, from parents who learned to request raw diagnostic logs. Then one night, as I was sorting through reports, I got a message from a secured account. "He's alive." It was Echo inside. He'd been relocated under a witness protection initiative, working with a European privacy task force. They'd safeguarded him after an anonymous tip. Someone who had flagged a potential retaliation hit just in time. I stared at the screen for minutes. All I could type was, "You okay?" The reply came, "Getting there and watching everything." The next week, I visited a high school to speak at their ethics in tech seminar. I stood in front of a room full of kids who'd never known a world without algorithms and asked, if an AI saves 10 lives but lies to one, is it still wrong? One student raised her hand. "Isn't AI just math?" I smiled. "Exactly, and math doesn't lie, but people do." We sat in a circle and talked. I didn't preach. I told them what happened, not who did it. They needed stories, not lectures. When I left, a boy followed me to my car. He handed me a folded piece of paper. It read, "My brother died because a machine said he was fine. Thank you for not letting them forget." I held that paper for a long time. Later that night, as I was locking up our small co-working hub, a message pinged my inbox. From an unverified account, no signature. "They're back. New name. Same system. Beta launch in 6 weeks. You know what to do." Attached, a PDF of a pitch deck. Different logo, different country, but the code structure was unmistakable. Micro cliffhanger. The next morning, I booked a flight. One way, destination, the birthplace of the first prototype that had started it all. It wasn't revenge anymore. It was responsibility. When I arrived, I found a city eager for innovation, but blind to ethics. Investors hailed the next evolution of medical AI. Promises of affordable diagnostics, real-time disease tracking, predictive treatments, all built on the same rotten core. I kept quiet. Gathered intel. Watched the system rebuild itself like a virus. New host, same strain. Then came the invitation. A summit on AI for global health equity. A chance to collaborate with international stakeholders on implementation frameworks. I attended anonymously, but they knew. Someone always knows. 3 days later, I received a sealed envelope in my hotel room. No return address. The contents? An NDA, a funding offer, and a clause. Data transparency protocols optional. Full exposure not required. Discretion expected. I traced the organization. On paper, it was neutral. A think tank with partnerships across continents. But dig deep, and one of the funding arms traced back to a holding company under a name I'd seen before. Gregory's name. Not directly, but enough. I froze. One of the ethics lab's own grants, our operating capital, had come through the same shell network. Minor twist, I called my co-founder. We tore through the financials. Quietly froze the account. Informed the community. Some were shocked. Some weren't. But the damage wasn't visible. Not yet. That night, I sat alone in the dim light of a rented farmhouse outside the city. The only sound was the wind tapping against the shutters. My laptop hummed beside me, running a background scan. I had a choice. Play along, keep our platform growing, make change from the inside, quietly, slowly, or expose the entire web again, knowing the backlash wouldn't just target me this time. It would hit every name tied to us. Can you ever truly stay clean when you've been funded by the same dirt you fight? I closed my eyes and thought about the students, the parents. Echo. The boy with the folded note. Then I opened my email, hovered over the compose button. My hands didn't move. The screen flickered. A new message appeared. We're ready. Just say the word. I stared at those 6 words like they were a detonator. I never accepted an award. Never gave a TED Talk. Never stood on a red carpet while people clapped for a thing they didn't really understand. I wasn't interested in being the face of anything. Faces get remembered, then forgotten. Systems, those endure. But somehow, my name still made it onto banners, news headlines, activist t-shirts. They called me a pioneer, a fighter, a traitor, depending on which network you watched. I stayed quiet through all of it. The work spoke louder. Ethics Lab grew faster than we imagined. What started as a single encrypted forum turned into global branches in Tokyo, Rio, Nairobi. Not offices, movements, students, retired doctors, young coders, disillusioned ex-employees, people who knew that doing nothing was the same as signing off on the lie. Every week, I received stories, some small, a hospital quietly switching algorithms after a student flagged concerns, some seismic, a national regulator mandating third-party audits after a public campaign. Then came the email. Subject, urgent, you need to see this. The body was short, a single line. I'm in his office. He doesn't know I left the recorder on. Attached, a raw audio file. I clicked play. The voice was unmistakable. A world leader, calm, polished, and confessing to his cabinet. Yes, we know the software inflates outcomes, but we're not pulling it. Too much money, too much pressure. Public won't care until it's too late. I played the clip twice, then sent it to the Ethics Core channel. The community debated for hours. How to verify, how to release, how to protect the source. I didn't intervene. They didn't need me to lead anymore. They led themselves. That night, my daughter stood on stage at her school's spring festival. Her voice trembled at first, then found its rhythm. My dad taught me that staying quiet when something's wrong doesn't keep you safe. It just makes someone else unsafe. The room applauded. I didn't clap. I just smiled and tried not to cry. Later, while we cleaned up streamers and plastic chairs, she looked at me and whispered, "You're still doing it, right? The secret work?" I paused. Yes, but less now. She nodded. Good. You looked tired last year. I laughed, kissed her forehead, and told her bedtime could wait. Tuong Taken, would you have spoken up? If it meant losing everything, would you still say no? Back home, I opened my inbox and saw it. A single email. No body, just a subject line. Are you ready, Ethan? I didn't reply. Not yet. Months passed. The media storm softened. Attention moved to new scandals, new noise. But under it all, the Whisper network stayed alive. Ethics Lab persisted, reshaping itself like water, adaptable, patient, unavoidable. I let myself slow down. We bought a small house on the outskirts of town. I grew tomatoes, raised bees, learned how to live in silence again. I stopped checking the news daily. I let the younger members of Ethics Corps run ops. I wasn't needed at the front anymore. But I never logged off completely. One afternoon, while tending the greenhouse, I got a call from an old contact. He didn't say much, just a name, a startup in Eastern Europe. Their new AI tool was sweeping clinics across the continent. High adoption, minimal oversight. He ended the call with, "They say their system was verified by an anonymous ethics consultant." I didn't need to ask who they meant. Minor twist, I smiled, set down the pruning shears, and walked inside. That night, after tucking in my daughter, I sat at my old desk, the one with the scratched edge from when I'd punched it in frustration during the early days. I opened a new email, addressed it to no one, draft only, typed a single line. Justice doesn't scream, it whispers, and it keeps whispering until someone listens. I hit save. No signature, no trail, just one final whisper, ready for the next voice. I shut the laptop. The screen went black. A single LED blinked once, twice, then turned green. Upload complete.